Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is my co-host, Danny Gillette, and we're back here on this Thursday morning for another episode of the podcast, and today we have a lot to talk about. It is Trae Taylor Commitment Day, so we're going to give you a little primer into that announcement, which is coming up today at 12 o'clock Eastern on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. We're going to talk about what this commitment could mean to Nebraska if they do get Trae Taylor. We'll also offer up some final thoughts on CharMar Brown, his decision to go to Miami, and wrap up some of the transfer portal movement that we've seen from Nebraska this week. So before we get into all that, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section, make sure you don't miss any of our other content. And Danny, how are you on this Thursday morning, Trae Taylor Day?
I'm ready for another commitment. That's what I'm ready for. All signs point to him committing to Nebraska. Of course, things can change in recruiting, but I feel very good about where the program stands today.
Yeah, it should. I think Nebraska fans should feel really good. You're all right, and things can change quickly in recruiting. But let's set the stage for Trae Taylor, who is the number 35 overall prospect, overall recruit in the 2027 class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings. He's the number 3 quarterback. So, if Nebraska was able to land his commitment, this would be the second time in 4 years that they would get a top 3 quarterback in their class. Since they got Dylan Raiola back in 2024. So it would be a massive commitment. He visited Nebraska over the weekend. All of the expert projections are going Nebraska's way right now. There aren't any crystal balls, although those don't seem to come as regularly anymore now that Steve Wiltfong and all the other experts seem to work for On3. But at any rate, Steve Wiltfong did put in a projection yesterday, or maybe it was Tuesday. Either way, Steve Wiltfong is on Nebraska now. So Sean Callahan, so is Brian Munson. Chad Simmons said that he was on Team Munson in the Nebraska message boards. I'm not sure if he actually put in a prediction. I saw a Michigan guy put in a prediction for Nebraska to trade or Trae Taylor to Nebraska. So everybody who's gone on record has said it's going to be Nebraska. Illinois did visit him yesterday, and they are the in-state school. I think Texas A&M may have visited him in person as well recently. But yeah, all signs point to Nebraska. So do you have any concerns this afternoon? Is there any program that you're kind of worried about at all, or do you just feel like this is Nebraska's lockdown?
I feel like this is Nebraska's lockdown. I mean, I think they've been very steady throughout his recruitment. He's talked about how he likes the business school in addition to what the football program can bring to the table. And I remember Nebraska getting in on his recruitment as early as last spring. So, I mean, they've been pretty steady with, wanting Taylor, and I feel really good about where they stand.
And yes, recruitment was interesting. He visited Michigan 14 times total. He was a very active recruit in all of his visits. He's visited Nebraska, according to On3, 4 times, but 3 of those visits have happened this year. The other one happened like in October, I think, of last year. So they've been very active in making him their priority in the 2027 class. They've got Braylon Warren, an in-state quarterback, who's getting some attention from Ohio State. They really haven't, given him much attention at all, and it's really been all about Trae Taylor. There was, Keegan Croucher was offered, a few weeks ago after one of Trae Taylor's other visits, but for the most part, he's been the priority. He's said a lot of great things about Matt Rule. He seems to have a great relationship with Dylan Raiola. So now it's just about closing the deal. But if they are able to close the deal today, which all signs point to that happening, in your mind, Danny, will this be the biggest commitment for Nebraska since Dylan Raiola?
Yes, because now it sets up your quarterback room. Like, now you guys are in business, and when you look at the month of May last year, May was when TJ Lateef committed to the program last year. So it seems like the month of May is pretty good for Nebraska quarterbacks and Nebraska commits, I should say. So this would be a massive commitment. It would kind of create a succession plan for life post Dylan Raiola. And it would give Nebraska stability in the quarterback room with quality talent, something that the program hasn't had in quite some time. So this would be a massive commitment.
Yeah, like you mentioned, TJ Lateef was a really solid get last year, but Trae Taylor's just on a different level. He's ranked, like I said, number 3 among quarterbacks, 35th overall. He's already a borderline 5-star recruit. I mean, so it's not that crazy to think he's literally 3 spots away from being a 5-star in the 24/7 composite rankings, which I think are the most accurate, the composite, them and On3. But I like how 24/7 calculates their composite rankings, which I know are going to probably all be different now that Rivals and On3 are merging, or we'll see what that looks like. But Watch this kid throw, man. I saw a video of Trae Taylor after his visit throwing some passes, and it's like, my goodness, this dude has an incredibly talented arm and just a great kid. And the other thing that's going to be great for Nebraska in this situation is that with Dylan, he flipped so late. He basically, was like a week or two before signing day. Nebraska couldn't really cash in on that commitment very much. They didn't really, you know what I mean? They did a little bit in the transfer portal, but Trae Taylor is going to bring some, cachet to this 2024 class or 2027 class, excuse me, for Nebraska. And I think that's only going to help them, build it as they go into it. I mean, they do have to hold on to his commitment now for a long time. I mean, almost 18 months, but this is when quarterbacks do it. Elite quarterbacks tend to commit fairly early. And so great pickup for Nebraska if they can close the deal, but a huge sign moving forward. And definitely, I think the biggest commitment since Raiola, and that shows that Matt Rule can go out and win, big time recruiting battles. That wasn't just because, Raiola and the last name and the connections. I think this will really, assert that, hey, like Matt Rule can go and get it done with 5-star borderline prospects, and they don't have to have any ties to this program. So I think that's the most impressive thing of all with Trae Taylor.
And when you look at the last couple of quarterback commits, Daniel Kalen, Dylan Raiola, TJ Lateef, they're all Elite 11 quarterbacks, and that to me means something. I'm not sure how much you measure, Elite 11 quarterbacks in that way, but to me that means something. So it just shows that they're getting a keen eye for talent at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and that's the most, if you're going to recruit well, like you have to recruit the quarterback position well. And Nebraska has done that, I would say, very well since Matt Rule's got here. I mean, I know that Daniel Kalen ended up transferring, but I think I've heard a lot of good things about him at Virginia, and it would not surprise me if he ended up starting somewhere. And then you look at Lateef, they got another solid guy there. Marcos Tavalia, they picked, they lost a former 4-star, and Kalen picked up another one. So I feel like they've done a really good job at the most important position in sports. And we'll see, how that works out this season with Raiola and in the future. But I definitely think they figured that if you looked at one of the things that's ailed this program, over their fall from grace, if we want to say that, after Solich to, Pelini and all that,
You can say that,
yeah. But they had Zach Taylor was Offensive Player of the Year, I think his senior year, in the old Big 12, and then Taylor Martinez was first team All Big 10 that one season. Outside of that, it's been very, underwhelming, the quarterback play at Nebraska, and they have not really able to find like this pro style quarterback, and now they've done that with Raiola. They're doing it again with Trae Taylor, and that's how you have sustained success, and that's what this program's been missing.
Absolutely, and I think when you look at bringing in Glenn Thomas, I think he's been a big driver of this success as well. He's been the primary recruiter in Taylor's recruitment. So, I think prospects are resonating with Glenn Thomas as much as the rest of the program too.
Yeah, Glenn Thomas he was a big part in TJ Lateef too. I mean, he came in late. Nebraska was really late in the TJ Lateef recruitment and pulled ahead and won it. So that was impressive. And yeah, this is another great haul, for this coaching staff. So let's shift gears now to some, I guess, not so great news for Nebraska that came out on Wednesday. We kind of got crazy with CharMar Brown in that, he was supposed to commit on Monday. He was projected to go to Cal by Pete Nakos, and then Pete Nakos dropped that percentage for Cal down to 0. Yesterday was a 2-team race between Miami and Nebraska. A lot of Husker fans had hope, but we got the word last night that it was Miami. CharMar Brown did announce that commitment, so he will be a Miami Hurricane. Nebraska will go into the season with Emmett Johnson and then Quentin Ives as the number 2. So what are your thoughts on CharMar Brown? How much does this miss hurt? And do you think this was just a money situation with Miami, or why do you think he chose the Hurricanes?
Well, first of all, Miami's rolling in money. Second of all, let's be completely honest here. Miami, Florida, or Lincoln, Nebraska. Third of all, I mean, I love watching fans freak out about the running back position. First of all, we're running an air raid offense, so the chances of actually running the ball like old-style 1990s football, I think, are very slim, given the talent at wide receiver. Second of all, some kids just want to move away from home. And I think a lot of fans get caught up in the fact that, this kid's a hometown kid. I want to play for, Nebraska and stay home. A lot of it's just, wants to go to a new destination. So I know a lot of fans are upset by it. I've said it before. I'm not worried. I really am not worried, because I think the way we utilize running backs is going to be completely different than, anything that we've seen in the past couple of years. So it hurts, but at the same time, I'm still comfortable with what we have because I think Parker. I know I know he's kind of getting adjusted right now, but I think Parker will play a big hand in this equation.
Yeah, and I think it's to me, Quentin Ives just has to, finally live up and show out, because that's the, you look back at the 2023 class, and if Nebraska wanted CharMar Brown, they could have had CharMar Brown. They wanted Quentin Ives, so they made that decision, and that's what it comes down to. I know Miami has a lot of money, but they also have a little bit of a different situation. I mean, I know they have two running backs back from last year, but they don't have a guaranteed starter. So I feel like they sold CharMar on the bit like you could have a chance to come in and be RB1 in Miami, where I don't think that was ever on the table at Nebraska. Like CharMar Brown was not going to start a game next season if he came to Nebraska. Like there was zero chance of that happening unless Emmett got hurt, where it's probably not going to happen at Miami, but I do think he has the opportunity. Like I don't think that one of those guys, you know what I mean, where I feel like Nebraska's kind of promised this role to Emmett Johnson and he's kind of earned it and cemented it.
Well, I think if they didn't, he would have been out of here a while ago, and I think that's why he came back. And this is not, this is I don't mean to do Wilson Dittman speculation here, but my opinion is that had he not been promised at least, the RB1 role, he still wouldn't be here because you saw how quickly he entered the transfer portal and then he came back. So I'm wondering if that was part of the deal.
Yeah, I mean that's just it's a little different between football and basketball because the roles in basketball are more defined, I would say, than in football,
Yeah,
just because there's only 8 spots. But
right.
that is in every transfer portal recruitment, right? It's like how much are you going to pay me, and what's my role going to be on this team? Like that's what every single one comes down to. There are other factors, like location and like whatever you want to. But the two most important things in every recruitment in football and basketball right now is what's my role on this team going to be, and how much are you going to pay me? Yeah, I mean, we can dance around it all we want, but and say,
Yeah,
there's relationships and yada yada, and those things still matter. Like relationships matter in business just as much as they matter in recruiting, right? Like you're much more, if you have a good relationship with somebody, you're going to close a business deal easier than if you don't get along with somebody like that. So those relationships still matter, but at the end of the day, like Trae Taylor could think Matt Rule's like the best coach in the world, but if they're not offering the right NIL or they're not offering the right role, like it's not going to match. It's not going to fit. And I feel like that there was some of that here with CharMar Brown. I just feel like this guy was the FCS freshman of the year for a national championship team. Like I don't know that he was going to necessarily want to come and be a backup to Emmett Johnson, who has 2 more years to go. So, I can definitely understand where he's coming from. And then on top of it, he probably did get a bigger check from Miami. And the way that I honestly feel like this went is Cal had a certain amount of money. Cal was probably leading, and then I don't know what happened there. If they just didn't want to spend, who knows? Who knows why these things break down? But it seems like they probably went to both schools, maybe saying
yeah,
like, "Hey, this is what's being offered." And I don't think
yeah.
Nebraska was going to get into a bidding war here,
No.
and so that's what I think happened. That's just my guess, but looking at it seemed like there was a lot of positive momentum for Nebraska, but it just felt like, more opportunity. Because look, CharMar Brown could be the starter at Miami maybe next year. And unfortunately, like even if he has a great, like Emmett Johnson's probably playing here next year. So I just don't think he has, as much upward mobility at Nebraska and probably didn't get, paid as much. And, you have the other factors too. Like you said, it's Miami. Maybe he wants to be away from home. Like we don't know. But I wish they would have got it done. At the same time, though, I don't think it doesn't have to be catastrophic. I do believe in Quentin Ives. This coaching staff believes in Quentin Ives. He just has to do it. And that's the scary part is we just haven't seen him do it, but that doesn't mean that he can't do it.
If this was, let's say, the Marcus Satterfield 2023 offense, where running the ball was, a pretty big part, and then I'd be a little bit more worried. But for what we want to do here in 2025 with Dana Holgerson, I'm not too concerned. And I think Quentin Ives can do it. And I think, I honestly think that later in the season, maybe, middle of October, Jamarian Parker might get some playing time because he's very talented, and I know he's got some things to work on right now. But I could see him, making a splash in this running back room. I think I think both the freshmen, Parker and Connor Booth, could see some playing time this year.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, just because a guy's hurt in the spring or he's taken like what happens in the spring and what happens in the fall are two completely different things, especially for a young player. I mean, young players can ascend like so quickly, and yeah, it could take him a month of being a college football player before he starts to get it figured out. But I mean, I can remember, shoot, I want to say when Emmett was maybe when he was a freshman or a sophomore, he got to play, late in the season, and so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's just how it works out. And I have no doubts about Emmett's ability to produce. My only concern with him, as I've mentioned before, he's 205 pounds. So, if Nebraska wants to run the ball with him 20 times, like I don't think that's a good strategy. They need to be cognizant of how many hits he's taken, and I really would try to limit him. I really think that they need to keep his carries like for the season to 200 or below. I don't think they can get like 250 carries on this guy. He's going to break down. That's just, it's nothing against him. It's just the Big Ten. It's a brutal conference, and running backs take a lot of punishment. So my only concern with him is, the wear and tear aspect of it. So Quentin Ives needs to be effective because they need to give somebody else those 5 to 10 carries a game, because I do believe they're going to throw the ball a lot, but they're still going to have to, if they're winning games, they're still going to run 25, 30 times a game. I mean, unless this team isn't as good as we think, um, you know, then they'll be probably throwing the ball more. But if you've got the lead, at some point you got to start, pounding the rock a little bit and kind of salting things away. So I still foresee 25, 30 carries this year, and 5 to 10 of those, maybe more, got to go to not Jamarian Parker, but Quentin Ives and some of the other dudes.
Becky Nelson too, I think. But yeah, no, I think you're going to see guys like Johnson involved a lot in the passing game too, like the little wheel route play that he ran with Dylan Raiola in the Pinstripe Bowl. I think you're going to see a lot of that too, because that showed up in the open practice back in March. So I think you're going to see them involved a lot in the passing game and in the running game. And so it'll be interesting to see how they utilize the running backs and what that depth chart looks like.
Yeah, you look at the last 4 games from last season with Emmett Johnson and just the receiving numbers. So against USC, 7, and this is after Holgorsen started calling plays, 7 receptions for 36 yards. Against Wisconsin, 6 for 85. Iowa, 6 for 25. Boston College, 4 for 24. So, and that
A
was,
touchdown, right? Or no?
yeah, yep. And he had the touchdown. And he caught a touchdown against USC too. So 2 touchdown receptions in there. Didn't score any rushing touchdowns, but had 75 yards rushing against BC, 71 against Iowa, 113 against Wisconsin, 55 against USC. So, I mean, he's got the ability, and that's 23 receptions in 4 games. That's an average of 6 catches a game last year for Emmett Johnson under Dana Holgorsen. So, he's got the ability, and that's definitely proven that he's going to be more productive in that area. I think Nelson definitely could be a pass catching threat. But the one thing, looking back at Emmett Johnson, he's never carried the ball 20 times in a game before, not once in his career. And he's going to have to do that a few times this season. I mean, maybe not. It just depends how good Quentin Ives can be. If Quentin Ives can get you, 10 for 40, then maybe Emmett Johnson doesn't have to carry the ball 20 times this season, because I'd rather he not do it. And I think that they kind of know that he's limited in that area, but it's just going to be interesting to see how it works out. I mean, I definitely don't think fans need to panic. I just think that if they had gotten CharMar Brown, it just would have given them an extra added layer of depth,
I
which
agree
would have
there,
been
yeah, for
nice.
sure. But I
But
know
I,
he wasn't gonna come here to play second fiddle.
but it would have been a luxury. It would have been a luxury for sure. It's not like it was. It was definitely, to me, it always felt like more of a luxury than a need. Like just adding more security. But it's just Quentin. I feel like Quentin Ives could be very productive. It's like I said, he's just unknown at this point.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
and CharMar Brown maybe a little bit more of a known, but hey man, there's a reason. Like I said, there's a reason Nebraska took Quentin Ives in the 2023 class. So hopefully they were right back then, that those recruiting evaluations matter, and we'll see how that pans out over the next few years.
I'm interested to see how he's utilized at Miami, because now there was another Nebraska running back who went to Miami a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, and now he's at FIU. But 3 teams in 3 years might not be a depth problem at each program. But anyway, so we'll see. I mean, um, I think he'll succeed in Miami for what they want to do in terms of their offense. But Miami also has 2 very good running backs ahead of Brown. So, I think, like you said, maybe he's looking at a starting job after this year. So we'll see.
And then, excuse me, the last thing I wanted to touch on for today, we have some transfer portal departures from Nebraska this week, which, the portal, excuse me, closed last Friday. Sometimes it can take a little bit of time for these guys to kind of get entered into the portal. Um, so anyway, I'm not sure if we covered any of these guys on Monday or if they had entered by the time we did our show, but you have Evan Taylor, who's entered the portal, the former defensive back, was a scholarship player. Ian Flint, tight end, defensive lineman. Nico Ottamanelli entered the portal recently. And then I think the biggest one to me, Grant Segrin, the offensive tackle, was a walk-on from, I think, Oakland, Nebraska. Came to Nebraska as a tight end, moved to tackle. Matt Rule really talked him up in one of his press conferences this spring. So he's actually already got offered by Washington State and some other Power 4 programs, but those are I think that's all the guys right there that have transferred. I don't know if we're going to see any others at this point. And I don't know. Do you think that all these players are going to actually leave the program, or do you think it's just like them doing it as like kind of an insurance measure like in case the 105 happens and they can leave, but if it doesn't, they could still return?
The only one that I could see possibly still returning is Ottamanelli, because we don't know, Mike Eckler and his special team style. I'm not sure exactly what Ottamanelli's style is, but um, that one was a little bit surprising to me. But the rest, I think, we have depth, starting depth on the defensive line. We were starting to have a really good amount of depth at defensive back. So a lot of these weren't surprising to me.
Yeah, no, and really none of them were surprising to me. I mean, with Nico, I just think, you know, when you do get at some point, they're going to have a 105-man roster. I mean, he was only a freshman, so like there's just not probably going to be a situation where Nebraska is going to carry 3 kickers on that roster. So while they've got Albano and John Hall, it's just I think that the writing was kind of on the wall there for the specialists, and those guys,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you're going to get, you're going to be down probably to 2 kickers, 1 punter, and 1 long snapper. I mean, that's going to be it on the roster because 105 man is 105. Whatever happens with it this year, it's going to take effect at some point. And so hopefully, Nico, I definitely think he can kick at this level though. So hopefully he finds a
Yeah.
landing spot. Most of the guys, yeah, it's nothing against them. Best of luck to all of them in the future.
Absolutely.
The 2 guys, DeAndre Barnes is one. Like I think he could have played this season. I do wish they could get Grant Segrin back. I don't know. I just have a feeling that guy. I mean, from a former tight end who's now 6'6", 300 pounds. I just have a feeling that he's going to start somewhere, on the offensive line. I know he got offered by Washington State, but it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up in the Big Ten somewhere. And so I don't know. I'm thinking not that there's really anything Nebraska could do to prevent it because he's still probably a year or 2 away from playing at Nebraska. But I think if there's a way that they could try to get him back on the roster, he's probably like the only one that, I would like to keep.
Yeah. And, you can always use offensive line depth. We've seen it before where you have too little and then it creates issues. But by and large, I help all these guys find programs, and because there's so many kids that enter the transfer portal and then they're never able to find a home. So that's the unfortunate part about all this.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. And then it's going to be, what it is going to be great for though, the NAIA programs, the FCS programs, some of these programs that have gotten some of their players poached too, but there's going to be a lot more talent that like programs like Nebraska were kind of hoarding, and that won't be happening quite as much in the future.
Yeah. And, it'll increase the talent at that level as well. Maybe get some more national exposure because a lot of these FCS teams are good, man. I mean, you look at like the Dakota schools, I'll call them, and it seems like we hear those programs called during the NFL draft a lot. So Gray Zeebel, the offensive lineman, went to, I believe it was North Dakota State. So I mean,
Yep.
North Dakota State seems to produce NFL talent, if not every year, then every other year. So there's no shame in going to an FCS program at all.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of FCS is getting better and better, and I think is we'll see what happens. If I would love to see, the FCS and the group of 5 like merge together. I think that would be sweet, and let the Power 4 be the Power 4 and let them have their own separate championships. That's my dream scenario.
Yeah, no, that would be a nice scenario because you look at like again national exposure, anything that can grow the game and gain more eyes on the lower, I don't want to say lower levels, but the kind of smaller levels of college football. I mean, that's never a bad thing.
And I think, man, like I just like teams in the MAC, like it would be. I mean, I know that now that they've got the guaranteed spot, like they have a chance to get into the 12-team playoff. Like if you're an undefeated team in the MAC, like you're probably going to make the 12-team playoff or at least be, in that conversation. So like you theoretically could run the table and win the national championship and yada yada yada, but like we know that's never going to actually happen. So
Yeah.
like I feel like it'd be really cool for teams in like the Mountain West and the MAC to compete for, the Group of Five or FCS national championship. Like North Dakota State going up against a team from like Conference USA in a play. Like I think that would be great television. I think ESPN could sell the crap out of it, and then I think you'd have let those sit the top 64 or 80 teams, let them do their mini NFL thing and let those other teams do college football. And I think it'd be the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, Montana's FCS team is really talented too. So, I mean, there's a lot of good programs, and there's a lot of good, I don't want to say hidden talent, but maybe not recognized enough talent that definitely deserves a bigger platform.
Yeah, it would be fun. Montana actually just had guys from each of their schools drafted and actually were from Montana. So
That's
they have
awesome.
quite a few players drafted, but not always from Montana. So yeah, one guy from Butte, one guy from Billings. Actually, it was I think Tom Brady might have had a role in drafting the guy from Butte. His name is Tommy Millott, and he's a quarter. He was a college quarterback, but he ran a 4.39 in the 40. So people are saying he could be like a Julian Edelman type, and so I thought that was interesting that Tom Brady's team, drafted a player like that because if anybody knows what a Julian Edelman can bring to your team, it's
Yeah.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, if he can have a Julian Edelman type career, that would be quite something. So
Yeah.
I'll still never forget the Super Bowl catch against the Falcons. That tight window catch, probably one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. And yeah, no, getting a Julian Edelman comparison is never a bad thing.
I remember when Julian Edelman like came on the scene as a 7th round pick and was just dominating the preseason that year.
As a
And
quarterback
yeah,
originally,
yeah.
and then
So
switched.
yeah, but yeah, great pickup there. So all right, you guys, we'll wrap everything up there. Again, Trae Taylor announcing the commitment at 12 p.m. Eastern today. So get your Husker hats on. Should be a good day for Nebraska, and we'll be back to talk about it. If you want to talk about it more, we'll be back on Saturday morning for our Saturday morning chat. So that will be 7 a.m. Central Time. So if you want to talk more Trae Taylor, look ahead to this 2025 season, come hang out with us on Saturday morning. And if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section, and always go Big Red.
Go Big Red.